In our last video, we took apart the spindle assembly, and as you recall, I was unable to disengage the pin. At least I thought I was unable to disengage the pin from the pulley. So if you recall, this was really stuck and I had to drive it out. But here the spindle and everything has been taken apart. It's been cleaned. One thing I do want to point out, and hopefully this will show up in the camera, there are several set screw marks. You see some scores along here, and there's another long one there. That might be the same one. There's set screw marks there. But essentially what happened was, in the pulley there's a set screw, and the set screw in this pulley is not to lock the pulley onto the spindle, right, but instead is a oil hole so that you can oil it so that these bushings here can get lubrication. And if you look, if you could see in there, which you can't, you'll see that the set screw was driven down in and driven into the bushing, and kind of almost locking, well, not kind of, almost, it did lock the pulley onto the spindle. And you can see, maybe you can see in the camera here, all around here it's scored. So everything has been the burrs have been taken off, everything has been cleaned up, and we're ready to assemble. But first, let's talk about what we have here. So on this side of the head, the headstock, we have an outer dust shield and an inner dust cover, I guess you'd call it. And you know, these help retain the oil and keep dirt out of the Timken bearings. So we'll have to put those in. And then the bearing goes onto the shaft. Now, maybe some of you guys can, onto the spindle. Maybe some of you guys can tell me, but I thought this was supposed to be a press fit bearing, but mine just slides on there. So maybe it's just that worn, or something. I don't really know. So this will slide through the headstock, and then we start assembling the bowl gear, the pulley, the drive gear, and a collar. And then of course the bearing will already be in the headstock. And then there's a spacer, a gear, and then the end collar here that will adjust the in and out thrust, or the end play in the shaft. For those of you who've never really got to see how this works, if we look inside the pulley, we'll see that there are two locations that the pin can engage. So as these two parts are on the spindle, the pin, when that rotates to the right spot, will engage into the pulley. So as the pulley spins, it would move the bowl gear. The bowl gear is attached to the shaft, of course, with a key. So that's a normal operation. So if we wanted to run in back gears, we'd pull this pin like that. See, just pull that pin, and then that would allow this pulley to free spin. Well, as this pulley spins, you'll see that it's got these little teeth or cogs. The driving gear has spaces there, and that goes in there so you could see how the pulley would drive that gear. So this gear then drives the back gear, which reduces and then drives the bowl gear. So you have an indirect drive, reducing it. I think it's about 6-to-1. So I'm going to reposition the camera, and we're going to start putting this together. So I'll be back with you in a second. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to put these inner dust shields back in. I think they're called something else, but I'm going to call them a dust shield. So I'm actually going to do that off camera, but because I think I'll just be in the way of the camera. This one gets driven in here. It's the one with the smaller ID. And then over here, this one gets driven in over here on this side. So I'm going to get those in. I'm going to oil these a little bit. I'm going to get some oil in here just a little bit, just so that everything's kind of coated. I'm going to drive these in, and then I will I would be right back, because I just think I would be in your way, or be in my own way of recording. I don't have any help recording tonight. My son's normally here to help me with that. And then when I come back, we'll start the assembly of the spindle and its components, and we'll go from there. So see you here in just a second. Okay guys, alright, so I recorded this whole last segment where I forgot to put the belt on the thing, and I also realized, I said I was just gonna, you know, do it off camera, but I realized that I didn't have the power turned on to my mic, so I'm thinking there's probably no audio. So we're gonna do this again. So the dust shields have been put in, the bearings are sitting in there, they've been well oiled. I'm not going to drive them back out. Now in other videos I've seen that when you drive the spindle out, it will knock this dust cover out, but my spindle is a sliding fit on this bearing. So again, I'm just going to put a little bit more oil on here and oil this up. Now the oil that I'm using is just 20 weight non-detergent motor oil, just SAE 29 detergent. I'm told that that's just fine. I'm going on the hopes that that's true. So alright, so the spindle is going to come in here just like this, and onto that we'll slide the bowl gear. I've already oiled the engagement pin, so it's going to slide through. If I can, the belt is kind of in the way here still, so I'll put that like so. And then of course the pulley, I've oiled these bushings real good, so we're gonna get that through here. Okay, it's like so, and then see if I can put this belt around here, get it on the pulley, just like so. Alright, so life is getting a little better, perhaps, maybe. Okay. Alright, so we're going to work that through there a little bit. Got to leave enough room for the gear here. And it's going to slide on the end of the shaft. I've already oiled this bushing real good. So slide this onto the end. It will interlock with the pulley. I don't know if you can see that there, but it interlocks. And then we're going to slide this through a little bit more, and then finally we got the retaining collar. Now the retaining collar here has to push up against this gear to hold it in, and if you have a little bit more meat on one side or the other, like this one does, I'm going to put the extra meat toward the inside. And push that on through. Now I'll probably have to just like that. Okay, and that come through. Alright, so now right now everything is just loosely fit together. And one thing I do notice is that this what we got going on here, this collar, why did that seize up? Oh. Okay, this collar here, there's a shoulder on the spindle, and this collar can really only go up to that shoulder. It can't go any further. So I'm gonna, I think, unless I just lied to you, see here. Yeah, it can only go up to that shoulder. So I'm gonna just push that up against that collar and tighten these two set screws. And then I'm going to adjust everything to that. Now the one video I seen, the guy had you know, kind of adjusted his bowl gear and then tightened everything up against the bowl gear. But like I said, I'm going to do this a little different. Okay, I'm just going to leave that like that for now. Now on this end, we have a retaining collar here. This pushes up against the bearing. Now on mine, there's a little hole there. And if I slide this on, that hole lines up, but I don't think that that's normally used. I don't know why that hole's there. I've not seen any of these retainers, or whatever you call this, that adjusts the end play of the spindle have a set screw in them. So I'm not going to put it in. If I find out that it needs it, someone let me know and I will put it in there. So we're going to spin this around, and I'm going to put this woodruff key in like so, and we're going to put the gear on. Okay, and then finally the retaining collar. Now I've got a little piece of brass in there, it was missing, to protect the thread, so I'm just going to hold that with the set screw down as I try to line up these threads here. Like so. Now what we want to do is tighten this enough, and I'm just going to use a set screw sitting in the thing here, and we want to tighten this enough to make sure that there's no end play in the spindle, so I cannot move that back and forth. And then we're going to preload it. Now I don't know how much to preload it, but we're going to take it here, and I'm just going to give it about 1/6 of a turn or less, just to put some pressure on there, and call that good. And I'm going to lock this down. The reason why you want to preload the bearing is because if as you run the lathe, this will generate some heat, and as it generates heat, it will expand a little bit, and if this spindle expands, it will loosen up in the bearings, and then you'll end up with some slot. Okay, so remember, we lock this collar in position. We're going to take this pulley here, this gear right here, which is driven by this pulley, and put it all the way up against there, and we're going to push everything back until okay. Jump the gun here, so we're going to have to take this back off. Dang. I forgot to put the woodruff key in. Okay, now with all this stuff slid together, we're going to have to push everything to this side as far as it will go, and move the shaft until we can expose the woodruff key. Now, the slot for the woodruff key. Now this key, the keyway sits underneath the bowl gear just a little bit, so you'll want to line up the keyway on the pulley and the shaft, and then take the woodruff key, and we have to sit it in kind of down and push it in like that to get it to run up underneath the bowl gear. And Alright, maybe. There it went. Okay, so that's in there. Now we can push the shaft back, and now the bowl gear is locked to the shaft by the key. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to slide everything this way as much as we can, including this gear, and you'll see that this collar is the same. The idea of this collar is the same as this side of the shaft, and there's a shoulder here. So we're going to push this collar all the way up against the all the way up against that shoulder, like so. Oops. Okay, and we're going to lock it down. I'm just going to lock it down a little bit here. All right. Now, for this to work, the pulley has to be able to drive this gear, and to do that, there's these little cogs there. So we're going to push the pulley up against this collar, and we're going to push the bowl gear up against the pulley. Before we do that, I'm going to put just a little bit of oil. Up against there. Okay. And we're going to take, and once we got that pushed up against there, everything pushed up against this collar, we're going to set this set screw here in the bowl gear. No. Yeah. No. Yeah. Yeah. We're going to do that. Okay. And it's just gently tight right now. Okay. Now on this end, we have a retainer. Now mine has a place for a set screw, and there's a hole in the shaft, but I've not seen anything that shows that with the set screw. It's just a slide on, and this has to be able to push up against the bearing to adjust the end play, so I don't quite understand what that hole's for. I'm going to line them up in case maybe I need to. And we're going to put in the Woodruff key, like so. And we're going to put on spindle bearing, and then I have a little brass piece in here to keep from messing up the threads. Was missing it when I put it together, and we will screw that on. Okay, so now we will tighten this here until we take the end play out of the bearings. Okay, so I'm just going to stick the wrench in here and use it as a lever. And okay, all right, I don't have any end play. Now we're going to preload the bearings. I'm just going to give it about that much of a turn. So the bearings are free moving, with maybe just a very slight amount of drag. But as the lathe runs and the spindle heats up, it expands, and we don't want end play in the spindle. So with that set, we will lock this set screw down. Okay. Now we're going to go ahead and lock these set screws down. The one that locks us up against the shoulder of the spindle. Okay. Remember, there's two of them 90 degrees apart. Okay. Now, with the bull pen pulled, you know, they should slide against each other, but I have a little bit of friction against the pulley. Okay. So I'm just going to back this set screw out just a little bit, and holding the pulley and everything that way, I believe I'm going to put a little space in there, and the way I want to do that is with just a piece of sandpaper here. I'm just going to lay that in there like that and push that up against the sandpaper to give me a little, and gently lock that. That wasn't a good idea. I want just a little bit of space so that the pulley can still engage with the pin and still remain engaged with the driving gear back there, but doesn't really rub hard against the bull gear. So I'm just trying to adjust that a little bit. Let's see. Still too much, I think. So I don't really know if this is the right way or not. Okay, I think that's all right. Let me lock this down. Okay, so there we have it. If I engage the back gears, the pulley will run it and drive the bull gear, reducing the speed. Take it out of back gears, spin the bull gear until it engages, and now we're in direct drive. Okay, guys, that's how this goes back together. Like I said, I'm a rank amateur. If I've done something wrong, please please let me know. Share with me. Like I said, I'm a computer geek by trade. Seems like we're fairly close on it. I had to, I want to make sure that these cogs are well engaged over here, for this pulley. So, trying to get everything pushed that way, since this collar here stops at that shoulder. So, like I said, in my next video, we're going to address these back gears, because I have slop in this shaft. There's some there's some collars here. I'm actually going to take this apart and see what I need to do to clean that up. I don't know if these gears are pressed on there. They look like they are, or if they're retained some other way. But anyway, we'll get into that later, because obviously I don't think we should have that much slop, and these collars are loose, and I just want to make sure that's all back together. So the last thing I want to do here is I want to make sure there's plenty of oil in the bearings here. I'm going to fill these up. I guess if I overfill it, it will run out somewhere. But I do want to make sure that I have plenty of oil. Okay. Alright, well, thanks for watching, and until next time, this is Joe Hildreth. I encourage you to visit myheap.com, see what other kind of trouble I'm into, or whatever it is that I'm messing up. Thanks for watching. Have a great night. Bye-bye.